Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here. Just want to talk tonight about day 7. We had one witness this whole day, a forensic accountant named Brooke Carrington, who's from the Salt Lake City area there. And she was on the stand all day talking about all the finances and the huge financial burden and stressors that anybody in Kouri Richins' situation would have been in an extreme pressure cooker. So I am really amazed to hear some of these numbers. So let's just go ahead and jump into some of these things. I was hoping to get on earlier tonight, but just been extremely busy with different things coming up. But at least I wanted to try to get on tonight at some point. So here we are at midnight. And so in any event, let me show here, share the screen. I'm going to jump around, show some of the key takeaways that I saw from today. Hi, everybody. I was trying to come on 2 hours earlier, but didn't make it. But here we go. Where are all you guys dialing in from? All right, let's see here. Let me go to YouTube now. And go to closed caption if they got it.
Properties.
Okay, here we go.
So does this, for example, show that in March of 22, she owed $800,000 in non-real estate debt?
That's what this shows, yes.
And she was also that month paid about $80,000 to service the debt,
That's right.
which is about the same $80,000 she was paying to service everything.
It is the same. And for most of her real estate loans were balloons. So her notes were balloons, like a 6 month. She'd borrow here and they did not require monthly pay. Most of them did not require monthly payments. And so that's why you'd see the same numbers there.
So she got pressure not only close on it, where then the loans come through to pay for that, but then she's got to find the right people to go ahead and get it fixed up some. And it looks like she was trying to do the minimal amount of fixing on most of these. And then she tried to sell it for a much higher price. And yeah, that's what I was thinking also. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, you have a lot of financial pressure if you're in the house flipping business. We'll get into that a little bit later here, but I'm familiar with some house flipping. I've fixed up a number of homes. It's high pressure. I mean, even if you have a set crew you can always trust of whatever it be, whether it's someone doing framing or drywall or painting, landscaping, roofing, plumbing, electrical. I mean, you got all these specialty areas. And so you got to know how to get the right people that you're not going to get ripped off from, and that you're actually going to turn a profit on this thing. So let's go ahead and look here. So right here, we saw that she's got the $800,000, and that's not even including the real estate loans. And she's got multiple real estate loans. So we'll get into that a little bit.
Scott, can we split that with page 4, please? Is this again then the graph of what's on the left-hand side?
That's right. So the same concept, just without the loans on the real estate.
Look at that. Look at, there's that $800,000 in total debt paid. I mean, she's not able to pay that thing down. She is in a world of hurt, and her head's going to get crushed by all this, and she needs a quick relief and fast relief.
The total debt owed seems to flatline about October 2020.
Anyway, let's go ahead and jump ahead to the 254 mark. Check out this bio of Kouri.
Scott, if you could enlarge the bio.
Using this to try to get other people to help fund her business, be venture capitalist types, or maybe just people that do loans, various kind of construction loans.
Bio portion of, thank you.
I think at this point, when she did this bio, she's not flipped a multi-million-dollar home that I've heard of. Supposedly she does have a master's degree, but look what she says here. She's got 147 employees based out of Park City, Utah. Look at, she's supposedly working on a general contractor's license, completing next month, certified, and investment. In 5 deals alone, made nearly $1 million. My team. All right, let's see what. Yeah, we saw some reaction on her today. She was. I agree with you, Sarah. Clenching her jaw, breathing was heavy. Anyone to react the same way, even remembering the weight of that debt.
Ms. Carrington, did you analyze Kouri Richins' finances to determine if she employed anyone, and if so, how many employees she had?
Yes.
How many employees did she have?
I don't know how many employees, but the payroll expenses that appear in her bank account statements are in the neighborhood of like $1,500 or $2,500. They're not consistent. So I don't know how many, but it's a very low number.
When you say her payroll expenses are, what did you say, 1,500?
Some of them are $1,500 or in the neighborhood of $2,000 or $2,500. They're not consistent.
Okay. And is it called 1,500 to 2,500 weekly, biweekly, monthly?
No, they're occasional, they're periodic, and nothing that would rise to the level of paying. I don't think paying over 100 people.
Would it rise?
So look at that. She doesn't even have probably one dedicated person on a payroll that's an employee, quote unquote. She's probably just hiring somebody here and there for different spot temp job to support this. But to say you have 147, I mean, this is like really outlandish. I mean, you're basically running a financial scam on all your investors. What kind of a house flip were these things? Were they actually really trying to do a good job and make sure they're going to withstand families moving in and not having all kinds of hidden things that are just skipped over and painted over and duct taped with drywall and things of that nature?
Rise to the level of paying over 3 people?
It depends on how much they're making.
In your analysis, did you find any evidence that Kouri Richins profited $1 million on any 5 of her deals combined?
No.
No way.
Thank you, Scott. Can we get, please, Exhibit 4-5?
I was really surprised that they went through such detail of her financial records. I thought that they could have gone over these whole things a lot quicker and still gotten the gist of this. And so I think some of this still was interesting because, like, gosh, how bad does this really get? So I just think that you sort of run the risk of, like, is this a fraud trial or is this a murder trial? So you don't want to get too far in the weeds on the fraud stuff, but because it's definitely there. I mean, this woman is here as a owner of her own forensic accounting firm, and she did an excellent job on the stand. They couldn't rattle her. We'll see that later on here.
Same objections.
4-5 is admitted.
Your Honor, before we publish, well,
My apologies.
that page doesn't matter.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that, Scott, can you scroll down 1 page? 2 pages? 3 pages? 4 pages? Your Honor, stop there. Article 4 is that's the relevancy.
Okay. For a moment.
The defense tried to keep all this stuff out, but It goes to show motive.
21, and this was provided by Excel Financial and David Ige in response.
Rather than getting into some of these LLC type documents, they showed a lot of documents, different emails, texts. So let's just go ahead to 429.
I'm going to try and do this without the pointer. So what I've done here along the bottom are just
Look, Kouri looks shaken, like she's nervous. This stuff is making her really fidgety, and she was really zeroed into what this expert was saying.
some phases of funding. And as far as the phases,
So right here, this shows if she's going to buy a house. I'll just quickly summarize. So what you see here, the blue here is what she bought the house with from Sierra West. So they would have financed it 100% to buy the thing, then to do other things to help support the purchase price. She used this HELOC from the house her and Eric lived in. HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. So if you have equity in your house, they said the house is worth $1 million. So she was able to get $250,000 out of that house. So instead of having the house, let's say if it was totally paid for, she owed nothing on the house, no mortgage. You're able to go to a bank and then get money loaned, and the house is then collateral to be able to secure that loan. So she was getting $250,000 off that. And so the rest here, for example, 10% of it, seller financing cash. This accountant said she had about 15,000 on this particular one. And then this is other here, rehab lender. So the rehab lender was the one actually paying for all the subcontractors and contractors come in there and make it look sellable for a new investor or a new buyer. And so what they did is turn around and then try to do it as little as possible. That was what Kouri was doing, as cheap as possible, then turning around trying to make the maximum profit. So it's just there's a lot of you're risking your own house to finance this. I mean, that's very risky, extremely risky. You're putting up your house. You got $1 million house and you're willing to lose your house just to keep this business going. That is extremely reckless. I don't know why other people offer these rehab lender amounts to help her with this, because it's very much a hit and miss kind of business. Even there in Salt Lake City, there's a lot of people that still move there, and they have a lot of mountains nearby and a lot of activities to do. But in any event, it's
no longer with
very high risk type of business. All right, let's go to 533 here. Check this out. Here we have
or will require replacement or repair due to
this is some of the disclosures that they had for this mansion that she was buying on 10 acres. And it just, to me, looks like an absolute nightmare to deal with. Like I said, I've flipped a number of houses. I've remodeled over 7 total, from partial to full. Look here, it says also animals have taken up residence in the ventilation systems. Animals, most likely you're talking about rats or mice. I mean, it's like, this is
delays in construction and the permitting/approval process. The structures have been of the project structure state and agrees to confirm through buyer's own due diligence which repairs and remediation efforts are necessary. Buyer acknowledges and affirms.
Look at here above this in yellow highlight, based on the buyer's own investigation, said structures in their state of idleness, disrepair, unfinished, or uninhabitable quality. I mean, that's like language you should just run from something like this, unless you got millions of dollars and you really like the land and you like the bones of the house, and you're willing to throw whatever it takes, millions and millions of dollars, many millions. So when I saw that house, I'm like, that's many millions away from being completed properly. And so it's like, where was she going to get this kind of money?
Buyer's own actual or potential costs of repair, remediation, demolition, remodel, restart, reconstruction and or completion in moving forward with the building projects. Buyer agrees to purchase and accept the parcels, buildings, structures, and all aspects of the purchase of said parcels on an as-is basis and waives and releases any and all claims against seller or any deficiency, unexpected outcome, or unknown condition, cost, delay, failure, or liability.
I mean, if a seller puts this in something they're selling you, I mean, this is like they're looking for any kind of possible language to say, you took this on yourself. I tried warning you that it has all these potential problems, but you bought it anyway. You're that foolish. So this is what I've never seen before. Something like this on a land transaction. You know, normally you buy a house as is, means basically, whoops, there's no what happened there? I hit the mouse and the thing went away. Stand by, please. Almost almost there.
Without all or necessary or desired permits, certificates, or allowances to build or complete the building process from Wasatch County or other governmental agencies. And buyer is said, and buyer is to be solely responsible for obtaining any required building permits from Wasatch County or any other necessary government entity. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that seller's building process was halted by the governmental permitting or allowance process, and as such, buyer intends to purchase these parcels as is, with full understanding that buyer may also face challenges and costs in obtaining necessary or desired permitting allowances to build, rebuild, or complete the building and occupancy process.
So that means you might not ever be able to finish the house. You may not get a permit to finish it. You may have to just leave it like it is. You can't put any money into it because you can't get a permit to build. In America, if you don't have a permit to build, you cannot build a building on a plot of land that you may own. It's that simple. So this is like, I've never seen or dreamed something could be this risky. But what they also had is like wetlands alongside the driveway. If you've seen pictures of the house, there's water on the right side of the road. And the house and the whole property are basically in different federal designated wetlands. And so you have to do all this kind of compliance with EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And I mean, it can cost more than what the house could be worth. So, or like I say, they may not authorize you to build a house. So apparently that's what it got shut down for, the building of it. And that's why the original person that started building the house just gave it up. They just didn't want to deal with all this nonsense of having to fight through EPA and get all these permits and all that. So you're going to take somebody like Kouri Richins that is like robbing Peter, pay Paul, and always drowning in debt, and then she's going to take on something like this because why? She thinks she's going to fix it up, totally invest in it for $6 million and sell it for 12. So this is her basically winning the lotto. This is her lotto win here. But
buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that the structures do not have certificates of occupancy, necessary approvals through all required inspections, and other indicators of structural habitability. Paragraph 4. Buyer acknowledges that seller has been working with the Army Corps of Engineers over a lengthy period of time, and that this entity is currently requiring additional wetlands evaluation of various materials, including water, environmental, etc. The Army Corps of Engineers may require other test requirements and certifications, etc., that are to be completed to their satisfaction. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that the Army Corps is an independent government entity separate of Wasatch County, and that the Army Corps may require its own permitting, which Wasatch County may also require in order to obtain building permits. I
mean, you talk about disclosure of an as-is property. This is like phenomenal, unheard of. But you know why? This person had a good lawyer and they wrote it up. This is not something a realtor is going to write up. This is what a lawyer wrote up. These people had money, whoever started building this house, and they just said, enough, we give up on it. And so with their many millions of dollars, and they paid, I'm sure, a pretty penny to have this kind of disclosure written up. They didn't want to have any chance of a buyer coming back on them and say, hey, wait, you never told us about this. Even though as is, you don't have to give any known disclosures. In most states here, like I say, there's so many things that could go wrong, and you may not even remember build a house. They wanted to make this thing bulletproof, so the buyer can never come back on them for any kind of fraud or misleading disclosures.
Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that the Army Corps of Engineers does not monitor or collaborate with Wasatch County in any way. Wasatch County may or may not issue building permits independent of the Army Corps of Engineers. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that buyer, not seller, is responsible for moving forward with the Army Corps of Engineers and all other governmental organizations that may have oversight or control of the parcels and building projects and occupancy certification processes. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that the process of moving forward could take considerable time.
That's the other thing I was thinking of, is when you have these kind of hurdles to jump through, Army Corps, EPA, whatever it is, do you realize that time is not a factor for them? They can take their time and just drag their feet, and you could be sitting there having all the money lined up, let's say the $3 million to fix it up. But guess what? You can't get a permit or authorization from the federal government. And so they may take 2 years of you haggling with them. And so you could get foreclosed on just for that alone, the fact that the Army Corps is taking so long.
Costs, delays, hardships, and burdens to buyer. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that buyer does not require any contribution from or assistance of seller with regard to obtaining all necessary permits, certificates, allowances, or approvals to restart the building process or complete said process and obtain all necessary inspections, approvals, certificates, permits, or allowances. Paragraph 5. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that the parcels have sewer rights, but that the sewer is not yet hooked up, is below grade, and will have to be pumped. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms all necessary steps to obtain sewer.
You know, that's what I'm wondering too. It's like, why would the sewer need to be pumped? So if you had built a new sewer, but nobody's moved into the house, then why would it need to be pumped? Is it because you got such high marshland there that they fill it up? And that can be a problem if you're in an area that gets rained a lot, or you have a high water table, like maybe your water table is only 5 to 6 feet below the ground level. So your sewer tank is going to be filling up pretty quick. So this will have to be pumped. That lets you know they're not on a septic line that goes to the government's waste disposal system. And so what they have is something on their own property that's acting as a waste disposal thing that decomposes the waste coming out of the house. So anyway, this is another scary thing, thinking you got to mess with this as well.
Function is the responsibility of the buyer and may be required to be on site on the subject parcels. Paragraph 6. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that additional or dedicated open space, i.e. wetlands, or other required remediation or mitigation may or will be required by the Army Corps of Engineers, and that to achieve mitigation or remediation, additional properties may be required for such. Thus, a potential off-site property may be obtained by the buyer. And if not on an additional off-site property, then remediation or mitigation may or will be on-site the subject parcels. There is a mitigation process that will need to be coordinated with the Army Corps of Engineers. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that there may or will be costs related to preparing lands to offset any disturbed wetlands.
Costs related to preparing lands to offsetting disturbed wetlands. What does that even mean? It means this. To me, it means hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and not months, but years of delay. Years of delay. Look, you got an outside consultant with BioWest has collected data and submitted data and recommendations to Army Corps. So you got to hire consultants and all that. I mean, anybody with a lot of money, I can't imagine them taking this thing on. It's just not worth it.
An outside consultant with BioWest has collected data and submitted data and recommendations to the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers still need to make its final decisions and will determine a mitigation plan with permits in cooperation with buyer.
I got nervous just looking now.
Paragraph 12. Buyer acknowledges, understands, and affirms that the Army Corps of Engineers may or will require further evaluation and study of wetlands underneath mounds of fill soil on the parcels.
I mean, her husband, he's a stonemason. He has some idea of houses, what it takes to maintain a house, things to watch out for. You're telling me that he would approve her buying something like this? I can't imagine any husband letting their wife buy this to try to flip it. Yeah, might as well.
So seller will provide access to buyer's consult.
I mean, you'd have a better chance of, I don't know. It's just mind-boggling. But you know what? She had a dream of making $6 million. So this is what she wanted to target it for, and nothing was going to get in her way.
Consultants or any other third parties related to studying groundwater or soils for the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Welcome.
But buyer will, let's back up. Buyer will provide access, seller will provide access to buyer's consultants or third parties related to studying groundwater or soils for, oh my gosh, you're talking about soil engineers got to come out, groundwater engineers. I mean, I'm just trying to think who would loan anybody money like this to fix this house up. This is ridiculous. Unbelievable that somebody would loan money for a house like this for somebody that's as broke as she is.
Any other third parties related to studying groundwater or soils for the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Carrington, in your experience reviewing REPCs, have you ever reviewed a REPC like that?
No.
Scott, can you please bring up 6-9? I will retrieve the exhibit. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Carrington, do you recognize exhibit 6-9?
I do.
What is it?
This is the settlement statement for the Legacy Way Midway Mansion property, where Kouri Richins Realty is the buyer and Douglas Roylance is the seller. And this is the final version of the sale.
The state moves to admit.
Yeah, that's the other thing. She had a HELOC and was going to risk losing her house that she's in. I just
6-9.
No objection.
6-9 is admitted.
Ms. Carrington, what information does this present? And if it's easier to step down, please do it. I don't know what's easiest.
It might be since I don't have a. Okay, this is not actually as complicated as it appears. So this is the property address here, the buyer, the seller, and the lender is Sierra West Capital. So that's the Sierra West Matt Strong stuff. So now over here shows the settlement date and the disbursement date as March 4th of 22. And then this is the internal
March 4th.
file number at the title company. This shows the sale price. This is the buyer's version. There is a seller's version, but this is the buyer's version. This is this.
Okay. So if it's not the bank, it's in some kind of investment company. But what investment company loan this kind of money? I mean, so you foreclose, and what do you get? You get nothing but an absolute nightmare.
Sale price of the property at $2.9 million. And then here shows 2 of the 4 loans on this property. So here's the original loan from Sierra West to this $2,624,850. There's another lender from the Burns, and that loan is $420,000. These are some prorations. This section here,
So
are you all right if I keep going?
Please, what's that section there?
This section, these are the fees associated with these loans. So
Yeah, the taxes on that property, even though the house isn't fully completed, that would be another monthly expense.
the first position lender is Sierra West Capital, this $2.6 million loan. They charged $124,850 at the outset just for the loan. And then on top of that,
So $124,000 just for the loan. That's not any interest. That's just your fee costs for them to handle the loan. 100. That's unbelievable. Wow. Loan origination fee to Lifestyles Lending. That's only $150. Then $20,000 by the second position lender. So
it accrues interest going forward. It's a 6-month balloon. So this being March 4th of 22, she has to pay that off by September 4th of 2022.
wow.
The next two, the 150, the 100.
You'd have been foreclosed on. No doubts. If she wouldn't have gotten busted.
$150 and the $20,000 relate to this loan, the $420,000 by the Burns. And then Scott, could you please scroll down? Thank you. That's great. So then here, these are the title insurance costs that are paid to GT Title Services, who's the title company in this transaction. So these are the different costs associated with that. So the first one, the lender's coverage premium, that's for the first position, the Sierra West one. Second position is the Burns, the 420.
Here, let's jump up to 551.
Scott, let me know when you're ready. Okay.
I'm going to give.
She wants to be the next Paul Benson. Look at this guy. Talk about him selling a Park City property for $42 million, and he got 5 offers in the first week. Insane. Yes. So this property is buying at $2.9 million, and then $3 million in renovation, and she's thinking she's going to sell it for $16 million. Absolutely insane number. Someone's going to make a killing on this. She wants to be the one making a killing on this. That's where you need your help. I need your help, thoughts, ideas. Realistically, obviously, I don't have $3 million for renovation. Coming up with $2.9 million. How could she come up with that kind of money? Sorry, that chat. I don't want to keep popping up there. Sorry, guys. Check that out. Yeah, it's definitely out of her league, right? But the margins are insane. I just had to pick it up and then figure it out. Yeah. Okay, there you have it.
Ms. Carrington, based on your financial analysis, did Kouri Richins either have or have access to $3 million to renovate the Midway Mansion?
Objection, Your Honor. That's not consistent with what he just admitted.
It's a different question. Can you please restate it? Make sure we're listening to the question that he asked. If you'd say it again.
Ms. Carrington, based upon your financial analysis, did Ms. Richins have or have access to $3 million for renovations of the Midway Mansion?
It's not that I.
Hold on. What was your objection?
Same objection, Your Honor. He's misstating what's in front of him as far as the evidence.
His question does not relate to this. Any other objections?
No, sir.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thanks, Scott. Ms. Carrington, did you investigate or try to trace any money flowing to the Midway Mansion project once Kouri Richins closed on it?
I did look, yes.
Did you find any money flowing to that project?
I did not find any money flowing to that project. There's one that is a maybe,
Okay.
but no, nothing significant.
What's the maybe?
It's in the neighborhood of about $3,000, I think. It's in that, the reason it's a maybe, is that your question? The reason it's a maybe is it's during that time frame, and it's to an entity that, and I'm sorry, I really can't remember which entity, but there's one that I thought might relate to this project, looking for, what she usually does when she acquires a project, she moves forward. And so I'm thinking she probably does the same thing here. There's one that I recall fits that category, but it's minimal.
I'm still thinking about how she needed all these environmental approvals, and you got to fight through all the red tape, hire all these consultants to try to prove to the Army Corps that you're not going to harm the wetlands, and you got to do this. You have a balloon note on that house in 60 days. That's just, there's no way she would have survived.
So at most, she, as best you can tell, invested maybe $3,000 into the Midway Mansion.
That's correct.
Did you investigate whether Kouri Richins tried to sell the Midway Mansion?
Yes.
Did she?
Yes, she did.
When?
She listed the property on March 12th of 2022, so the week following her acquisition of it.
That's also a week and a day following Eric Richins' death, right?
That's true.
Did Kouri Richins ever sell the property?
She did not.
What ultimately happened to the property?
After 12 offers that were made and canceled for one reason or another,
Because they realized what a nightmare that property was.
actually, let me restate that, please. After, I believe there are 7 or 8 that were offered before her note was due. And then after that, she continued to try to sell it unsuccessfully. And at some point, the lender, Matt Strong, foreclosed or recorded a notion. He recorded a document, notice of default and election to sell. So
She doesn't like hearing the fact that she messed up so bad and this thing was a nightmare. So she's a little bit angry right now. She doesn't want to have everyone hear about this. What a absolute disaster of a so-called investment this was.
basically started the foreclosure process.
And did the 12 failed contracts all fail during the diligence period?
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm.
In the months leading up to Eric Richins' death, what categories of assets did Kouri Richins have?
Categories of assets that Kouri Richins had. She had, she owned several properties. So that's one class of assets. She had financial accounts, and those were various balances.
On March the 5th, 2022.
But she probably had the property in her name or her LLC. But the thing is, she probably owed like 90% or more of the value of those properties. So she really didn't own them. A lender did.
Immediately after closing on the Midway Mansion, what was the value of Kouri Richins' assets?
Including the new property, was about 6.3 or 6.4 million.
In the months leading up to Eric Richins' death, what categories of liabilities did Kouri Richins have?
So liabilities are things that she owes. So she had a loan on the properties, each of the properties that she owned. And each of those was more than the property was worth. She also had all those payday loans that we've talked about. And she also had different lines of credit that were by and large all maxed out. Not just the HELOC, but also she had some personal lines of credit associated with her checking accounts. Those were all maxed out. And she also had credit cards that had high balances.
On March the 5th, 2022, immediately after closing on the Midway Mansion, what was the amount of Kouri Richins' liabilities?
Right about $8 million.
So netting that out, on March the 5th, 2022, after closing on the Midway Mansions, what was Kouri Richins' net worth?
She was in the hole. She was negative 1.6 million.
As a forensic accountant,
And then she needed another 3 million to fix it up. I mean, this is mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling.
have you formed an opinion as to Kouri Richins' financial position on March the 5th, 2022, after closing on the Midway Mansion?
Yes.
What is your opinion?
As of the date that Eric Richins died, Kouri Richins was in financial distress, and her financial enterprise was collapsing, had been collapsing, and but for a significant infusion of cash and capital would have continued to collapse. It was imploding. Her debts and liabilities far outweighed her assets. And even if she had sold everything she had, it would not have been enough to get back to zero.
Let's turn briefly.
How could this company loan her money when this is her financial status? It's guaranteed to fail. She was guaranteed to fail. And people will still loan her money. I just don't get that.
To Eric Richins' estate. Did you analyze the value of Eric Richins' estate?
Yes.
What material did you study in this analysis?
The insurance policies, the life insurance policies, including there's a life insurance two life insurance policies that Eric and his business partner had on each other. So there's the company, the documents that relate to that, the bank accounts, the documents related to the house where the family lived, and his bank account statements.
Are the bank accounts de minimis in relation to Eric's interest in C&E, his life insurance, and his home?
Pretty much, yes.
Let's set those aside then.
Right.
How is Eric Richins' interest in C&E, or how was Eric Richins' interest in C&E determined upon his death?
It's based on the value of those life insurance policies. So it's basically $2 million.
It's exactly $2 million, wasn't it?
It's exactly $2 million, yes.
Scott, can I get 7-28 Delta?
Of each of these insurance policies, the applications for a couple of them, the claim information, and also the payout of these policies.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit 7-28D. Ma'am, what again is this?
This is just a simple list of the different life insurance policies. I have not included the buy-sell agreement policies, the $2 million that benefited Eric's business partner.
Okay, so you see here, beneficiary, Kouri. So the ones that are highlighted is Kouri. So $1.369 million. So he was worth more to her dead than alive.
But these are the others.
Scott, if you could please highlight the claim paid.
I can't believe insurance companies paid out on this with this suspicious death.
Sorry, the policy amount column.
But it does help the prosecution show she got the money. If she wouldn't have got the money and all that, then you go, well, could she really realistically expected money if she was going to be accused of murder? But no, she actually got the money.
Does this show that Eric Richins had $2.2 essentially $1 million in insurance upon his life?
Yes.
Scott, can you go to the claim amount paid?
There you go. Look at that. So she got paid in June. On the
What,
first
ma'am,
two
does
in
this column,
August.
what information, ma'am, does this column present?
So for each of these policies, there was a specific amount paid. Like the top one is on the related to the house. And
But you know what? So even with this money that she got, this was enough to keep her afloat in that nightmare mansion. So let's jump ahead here then. So we get the idea of she's absolutely drowning in debt, and some company's willing to loan her money to take on this nightmare of a mansion on some kind of wetlands that are protected and have just nothing but red tape and hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to navigate with experts for soil and water and environmental this and that. I mean, it's unbelievable. So let's jump ahead here to the cross. I just want to cover a little bit of the cross here because I thought this was something that's we're taking a note of, but don't want to spend too much time on it, I don't think, because it's again irritating to watch. So this is Attorney Nestor here doing the cross.
All right, folks, have a seat. Thank you.
Remember in her opening, Nestor was talking about how she was a good businesswoman, or words to that effect was what I remember. And everything seemed to be running good in her business. Isn't that what you guys remember? Am I wrong on that? Is my memory serving me wrong? But I remember hearing about how this Nestor in her opening was saying, well, you know, she's a successful businesswoman.
Ms. Carrington, you're still under oath.
Yes.
Ms. Nestor, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Good afternoon, Ms. Carrington.
good afternoon, Miss Nestor.
You and I have known each other for some time. Is that
We have.
accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. So I'd like to talk to you about how you got involved in this case. Is it fair to say that you were brought into this case by the gentleman who was working as a private investigator for the trust for the estate?
Absolutely, yes.
And his name is Todd Gabler, correct?
That is correct.
And Mr. Gabler is also someone you've known for a really long time.
I have professionally, yeah.
Right. Well, of course. I should have said that. I'm sorry. And you guys even share office space, or did at one point?
No, never.
I thought you did. Sorry. And so initially when you were brought into this case, Eric Richins' family was really your boss in the matter.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I was hired by their attorney, Crystal Bowman Carter, after Kouri initiated the lawsuit. That's when I came in.
But the work you were doing was designed to assist Eric Richins' family in the litigation. Fair?
Fair, yes.
All right. And during the time that you were working for the family or the estate or the trust, did you also do some witness interviews with Mr. Gabler?
No.
You didn't go to any interviews of witnesses with him?
No, I did not go to any with him. No, I don't think so. No, I didn't.
And then at some point you stopped. It sounds like your work kind of trickled off for the estate or the trust when they got a new lawyer, right?
Right. I've known that firm for a long time, and I'm usually on the other side. So they use other people for their forensic accounting. And so I was not surprised when the estate got, when the estate got new lawyers, that they didn't adopt me as well, which is fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And then how is it that you became associated with the prosecution team?
I don't know how that happened.
They reached out to you?
They did.
And are you aware of whether Todd Gabler recommended you?
I have no idea.
And Mr. Bloodworth asked you on direct, he mentioned that they've retained you at your normal rate. Is that right?
That's correct.
So it looks like you've done quite a bit of work.
I have done a lot of work.
Binders worth of work.
Yes.
And so how much have you been paid by the state or by the county?
I don't know exactly, but it's probably about $200,000, which is a lot.
All right. Now I want to talk to you a little bit before we get into details about it, the nature of the house flipping business.
Okay.
I think you talked a little bit about this on direct. But the idea of someone who's in the business of flipping houses is you want to buy a property that appears to you to be undervalued for sale. Is that fair?
Well, you want to get a good deal on. Is that what you mean?
Sure.
Yes.
So you look for something that maybe is a little below the value of the property.
Fair enough. Yes.
And the idea is you do just a little bit of rehabbing, right? You don't want to sink a ton of money into it or you're going to not make a profit.
Yeah, you don't want to have to do anything other than paint it. Just paint it. That's all you need to do. And then double the list price and sell it a week after you bought it.
Well, it depends, right? It depends. I mean, it depends on where where it's located and what's the upside.
How many rats nests they find in there, and how many hundreds of mice are running through the house in the attic.
Miss Richins properties spanned a lot of those. Some of them were very small, easy fixes and flips. And then like the one that we were talking about, the Mill Creek project, that was enormous. The Provo project was enormous. So it could be any of the above.
Sure. But if you want to make money, the goal is to do as little rehabbing as you need to flip the property. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Sure.
And as I would say, put a little spit and polish on it and then get it ready for sale, right?
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, but the thing is, if you turn around doing a flip and all you want to do is spit and polish, you're not going to make any money. You actually have to spend some money to make good improvements. So unless this market is just being flooded by people from California, and they don't care about paying somebody like Kouri a huge profit for little, like I say, just doing some spit shining on the house. You think a lot of people be going, wait a minute, I don't want to get ripped off here. I'm going to find something better. I don't want to be ripped off by some flipper like what Kouri's doing here.
And then the goal is to flip it as quickly as you can for more than you paid for it.
That's correct.
And you know what? A lot of times you'll have a realtor that's going to tell you, if you're going to turn around and flip a house, you better have a laundry list of everything you did to show that you're not ripping off the buyer of this house. So are you putting in, new siding, and do you have brand new roof on it, and put what the prices are? Did you pour a new driveway? Did you remodel the basement? All these kind of things you need to justify. You just don't, like I say, do something like putting lipstick on a pig and then turn around and sell it as some prize champion wonder house.
And enough more that it covers whatever you paid to spit and polish it.
That's the idea.
All right.
And you know what? So what this makes me sound like is like she's running a shady business. So to me, I'm like, if I'm sitting there on the jury, and if they know something about flipping houses, they're thinking, so basically she's trying to scam all of her customers that are buying houses off of her. So anyway, it's not a good look. So she's looked like she's scamming everybody, including the buyers of her house.
And the nature of this business is the goal is to hold that property for as short a time as you possibly can before you flip it.
Absolutely, especially because of the way the financing works.
Right. And let's talk about that.
Okay.
So because you know the goal is only to hold that property for just a really short time, you often use what are called hard money lenders, right?
That is true.
And we did hear you talk about that on direct, but just as a quick refresh, because I think that was 20 years ago, the hard money lenders lend money without all of the formalities that a bank requires to lend money, right?
For example, that is correct. For example, the underwriting process is almost nil.
And to sound really kind of juvenile about it, it's basically wealthy people that are willing to loan you money short term for a short period of time at a super high interest rate, right?
Right. And they assume the risk of that. And in exchange, they have very strict zero tolerance default clauses that make a loan just skyrocket in cost and interest if it's not met, if those terms are not met.
So she lost money on her flips, most all of them except for one, and then she's got to pay this outrageous, basically a loan shark type of setup. It's just not any good business sense here at all.
And the reason for that is this is a risky business, yes? For both sides.
I'd say it's risky for the borrower.
And
Yeah, especially because you're willing to lose your house, your $1 million house. You're willing to lose it.
for the lender, because they're not putting someone through all the vetting that a bank would. They're just trusting them that they're going to show back up in 90 days and pay them off.
But you're missing a key piece. They secure that property with their trust deed so they've secured their collateral.
Totally fair. That's
Yeah, and the buyer is willing to lose everything. So I don't think this attorney is good at making any points here to help her client.
absolutely right. So riskier for the person that's doing the flipping than it by far than for the hard money lenders.
Yes.
Okay, so you agree with that now with this expert, and so you're just making your client look really greedy and like she scams the people that buy her houses. She's trying to do minimum amount of work, spit and polish. So that's not a good look for a client facing murder charges.
But the hard money lenders generally do not expect to get paid monthly payments in between when they loan the money and when they get paid back.
That's true, because they want a balloon payment, and if you don't pay it when it's due, they'll crush you. They'll take it out from underneath you.
Fair?
Well, it depends. And I think that's usually a true statement. Kouri Richins had most of her loans that were like that were 6-month balloons. There was nothing expected. In fact, when the subpoenas went out, I expected to get all these ledgers back, and nobody has a ledger because they didn't care. They just knew when the balloon was due, and they were going to get their money or their property.
Exactly right.
Miss Richins had 3 property. Well, she had 2 lenders that had monthly payments.
And because of what you just said, the hard money lenders have what we call a promissory note, just a promise that if I don't pay you like I promise on this note, you can get the value, you can get the property and sell it yourself and recoup your money, right?
Yeah, there's a promissory note on any kind of a loan.
So when you put all those loans up there, they're backed by the collateral, the house.
Can you clarify which loans they put up where?
Sure. And that was a broad statement. So
I just want to make sure we're talking about because the loans I put up there are the payday loans, and those are different.
I'm talking about the hard money lenders.
Okay.
When you showed some notes, for example, where I think Matt Strong paid a couple $1 million on one property. Somebody else paid $300,000 on another property. All those loans were backed by the property. They were totally secured.
For the first position lender, they're totally secured. The others are secured with the property, with the caveat that they are in second, third, and fourth position. For example, the Midway House, the Legacy Way House, the second, third, and fourth position lenders did not recoup any of their funds on
Okay,
that.
well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But if Kouri,
That's what I'm saying. Anybody that buys that house or helps somebody buy it and invests, it's an absolute disaster.
were to default on a promissory note and they went after the property and took it and sold it, Kouri would owe zero because they would have recouped their note from the sale of the property,
That's true. She'd owe zero and she would have made zero.
right? But she'd owe zero.
That's true. That's true. Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Did you?
No.
I'm sorry.
If they repossess it and they sell it and it doesn't get as much as Kouri paid for it, then she would still owe that deficiency. She's not off the hook.
It's probably she would probably owe zero. I don't know. They could go after her for the residual. I don't know of a situation where that happened here, but
Okay. Did you do any analysis of the average length of time Kouri held the properties before she would flip them?
no.
Okay.
I do know. I do know about every property, but I haven't compiled that into a schedule.
Did you mentioned you interviewed, I believe, some of the hard money lenders. Is that right?
That's right.
And prior to Kouri's, actually, let's do this. Prior to Eric's death, every one of those hard money lenders got their money back from properties they gave to Kouri, or properties that they lent money to Kouri on, correct?
Let me think about that. Prior to Eric's death.
Yes.
No, that's not true. There's one of her early projects, I think it's Casperville, where she ended up $28,000 in the hole
Okay.
on that project. So she walked away with no buyer proceeds from that. And that was not a successful project. And I haven't looked to analyze who got what, but that would be a situation where not everybody got their money back.
Do you know whether she made them whole with her own funds or in some other way?
I have not seen anything that reflects anything like that.
So you don't know?
I don't know. No.
Okay. So except for one occasion, on all these other deals that were done before Eric's death, all the hard money lenders got their money back from the deals they did with Kouri, plus interest.
I would say that's probably true, but I may come up with another one. I try not to deal in absolutes.
All right, now I want to talk about these bank accounts.
Okay.
And I appreciate that you were trying to, excuse me. Sorry. I appreciate that you were trying to track insufficient funds, things that popped back. I call them in my parlance bounced checks. That's what I know them as and have done.
Yeah, for bounce checks, she had in 1 year, as I recall, I didn't show it here tonight, but she had like 72 bounce checks or returned non-sufficient funds for like $325,000. And that was like in 2021.
When you were tracking these, did you ever go back and see how or if or when they were made whole?
They weren't made whole.
Okay. So the bank continued to keep open accounts where $300,000 worth of checks were bounced. And you're saying there's no resolution of that on either side. The bank that sent it, the bank that got it. It's just, they just let her continue to have checking accounts where she bounced over $300,000 in checks.
So can I answer your question
Sure.
with a description? So the Navy Federal accounts really never had any significant money in there at any time that I looked at. So there was no like deposit that came in 2 days later that just missed it just, there was never an attempt to try and cure that check on the Navy Federal
Let
side.
me stop you right there. Did you ever follow up and find out if Kouri made the person she wrote the checks to whole with another check out of another account in another way?
Well, we're talking about a couple of different things. The checks that I'm talking about are the ones that she wrote to herself.
Okay.
She's the payee. So then, can I come back to that question? I'm trying to answer the prior one. Okay. So on the Navy Federal side, no, there was never an attempt to cure that.
Okay, but wait, stop right there. On the Navy Federal account, she was writing checks to herself.
That's right.
So did you track whether she actually put money in the account where she put the hot check, as I would say, to cover it later?
Well, and that's what I'm getting to. Okay. So she writes a set of checks to herself, and they get deposited into either the Kouri Richins Realty 6577 or that Kouri 5244. Those checks go in, and eventually, so they're returned unpaid by the bank, and so that makes the balance go way in the hole.
Sure.
Eventually, there are funds that go back to the account.
That's my point.
And my understanding of how banks work, banks and credit unions, they work, in answer to your question, or your wondering about why would they allow her to continue going if she's bouncing all these checks. Financial institutions don't look at just this account or just the accounts by this person. They look at the relationship. And so we've also got Eric and C&E Masonry and whatever else. And so they will look at it from a business point of view. They don't want to kick her out because they've got another account that is making them money or is being dealt with differently. So that's the answer to your question, why they wouldn't just cease and desist and kick her out of the bank.
Because somewhere in these accounts, there's enough to cover these bounce checks, or they would shut that down.
The way you're saying that is not correct, and that's not what I just said.
Okay.
They will look at the totality of the relationship, and they want to honor that relationship. There's not a scenario in which they would dip into C&E's account to pay Kouri Richins or Kouri Richins Realty's checks. So that's an important distinction of where I would quibble with what you're explaining.
Okay. I never saw anywhere in your myriad of check statements that we went through that there was one where she was a negative $300,000. So those checks were covered. Yes?
No, they weren't.
Okay.
No, could I please explain what the negative 300,000 is? So it's a simple exercise where I looked at the bank account statements and I just added up the transactions that she tried to pay. And not all of those were paid. A lot of those were returned unpaid. So I'm not making any judgment call. I'm not making any conclusion other than looking at that Kouri Richins Realty account 6577. That is what she tried to pay unsuccessfully without a fee.
And then other funds went into that account subsequently.
Right.
Every time.
Well, eventually, yeah.
Okay. That's
Yes.
it. All right. Now, I
Well,
also noticed when you're putting up all these accounts, I didn't see any of Eric.
She's getting very emotional and stirred up. Yeah, when you're talking about the money, and she's upset that she's being accused of being a scammer, poor money manager, etc. But you know what? Stuff about her husband, no emotion whatsoever.
Eric's. Did you analyze how much money Eric had?
I did look at their family accounts, and their family accounts, when I'm looking at an account, it's really easy to try and get kind of a cadence or an understanding of how that account is used and the characteristics of that account. The family account, as opposed to the Kouri Richins Realty and Kouri's personal account, was consistent. It always had a balance. That's where Eric's paycheck went in.
Let me stop you right there.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from Eric's paycheck, Where else did all the money from the family account come from, apart from Eric's paycheck?
There were distributions that came in from Eric's work, and there were occasional, I know you've asked me this question before, and Kouri Richins did not put more money into that account than Eric Richins did.
Did she put a lot of money into that account?
She did put a lot of money into it, yes.
And that account was used for family, for paying mortgage, for paying trips, all their personal expenses, right?
Not all of them, but that is the family account. That's where the kids' expenses were paid. Not all credit cards were paid from there because not all credit cards were family credit cards.
And Kouri was regularly contributing to that account out of her business accounts.
I would
Yes?
not agree with that statement.
Okay. So we know Eric's paycheck goes into the family account.
That's
What
right.
about the other accounts you mentioned for Eric? You said Eric had a separate account.
There was a personal checking account, and I had reviewed that initially. It looked like it was squarely Eric's account, and the 5244 was squarely Kouri's personal account, and so I kind of set those aside. She used her personal account for her personal expenses, and he used his for things that appeared to be his.
And you do not know the arrangements that Kouri Richins and Eric Richins had as a couple about when they would make money available to each other, did you?
I don't.
Okay, so how much money was in Eric's personal account?
Habitually, there was enough to pay whatever was attempted to be paid from it. I know that my recollection is it had, 10,000, 20,000, something like that. I don't recall it bouncing checks, and I don't recall it going into the negative.
Okay, but you did not provide that to the jury to review in terms of assets that were out there for this family.
Objection, Your Honor.
Based on.
Well, I don't know what you're trying to get out of this, counsel, because it's actually hurting your client again, because if Eric's not wanting to support her wild spending and all these flips, and she's just drowning in debt and all that, and he's keeping his money separate intentionally or either not knowing about it, it just shows there's a big gap in communication between Eric and Kouri. And I think it must be the issue of Kouri did not tell him what was really going on. I don't think he probably had much of a clue that she was this much, as this phenomenal expert said, her financial enterprise was collapsing and it was imploding. So I don't think Eric had any clue that's what was going on. I think he realized, being somewhat smart about houses and construction, that the house on the swamp was definitely a nothing but a disaster that was going to make them lose their house potentially. So in any case, sort of a bad move by the defense counsel here to try to show that Eric had money and he could have helped her out, because he wasn't helping her out, it looked like.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, she's not laying a glove on her at all. This Brooke Carrington's doing a phenomenal job. So let's jump ahead here.
Into seeing multiple hours of your direct, anything about that account that Eric had.
No, that's correct.
And you also mentioned you looked into C&E accounts.
That's right.
And C&E is the name of Eric's business.
Eric and Cody Wright, his business partner.
Right. And that's where he kept his business profits, correct?
They kept theirs, yes.
Okay. And I didn't see those accounts today. We haven't talked about how much Eric was worth while he was alive, have we?
No, Kouri didn't have any control or access to the C&E account.
You understand they're married.
I understand that they're married, but that is not, that's a business account that was shared between two business partners.
Okay, but business owners can do something called a draw, right? What's a
That's right.
draw?
Your Honor,
Where's there indicators that he was drawing money out of his business that he owned with Cody to funnel the wild house flipping business of Kouri.
Objection. Scope.
Yeah, you're gonna have to help me out. Do you want to approach for a minute?
Okay. I don't think the jury needs to see anything about what Eric
Okay.
asked. I think they get it.
The C&E accounts, that's the business accounts that Eric and his partner put money in for their business, correct?
That's where their revenues and their expenses were paid, yes.
And the jury saw multiple examples of C&E checking accounts today during your direct, did they not?
That's right.
And routinely, the dollar amounts in those accounts were in the strong six figures, correct?
Routinely, yes.
Okay. And you don't know what arrangement Kouri Richins and Eric Richins had about whether or not he would invest in her business, whether or not he would be a silent partner, whether or not he would help her fund her business. You don't know that, do you?
No.
Okay.
Well, there was no indicators that money was coming from his business, C&E business, to help float her business. So I don't know why that wasn't clarified.
The Barney house,
Okay.
Chelsea Barney's house. You guys spent a couple hours on that, or about an hour and a half on that today in direct. And as I understand your testimony, Ms. Barney was going to provide $45,000, or did provide $45,000, which you traced all through Ms. Richins' accounts, to Ms. Richins to be used at a closing in the future, correct?
To be used at a closing that day.
Thought they never had the closing.
Well, they didn't.
Right.
My understanding of that whole text string is that there was this closing that was going to happen imminently. And this was the $45,000 down payment that Chelsea was paying toward the house to then be in her name.
Right. And the $45,000, well, strike that. Let me back it up just a little bit so it's not.
I just think the attorney's not coming across well. I think she's coming across in sort of like a condescending way towards this expert. This expert doesn't have a dog in the fight. So I just don't think it's a good cross-examination. I don't think she scored any points at all. At all. I think the thing that stands out to me is that what she established was that her client ran a shady business. Any way you look at it, everything she was doing was shady and trying to cut corners. And she was getting scammed by other people, and she was trying to be a part of that and scamming people buying her houses. And that's why she wasn't making any money, because people were taking advantage of her, and then she was trying to pass it on and take advantage of others. But she had this unbelievable desire to get this mansion, and she had this insatiable desire to become somebody that had millions of dollars at their disposal. She thought money could buy her happiness, and look what it did. It just got her locked up and charged with murder. So yeah, 1962 Melody says either Eric didn't know or he wasn't going to help her. I think he didn't know. I don't think he knew the extent of any of this. And I think once he decided he was going to help her fund this crazy mansion, probably was his death warrant right there. Because think about it, you get rid of the one block in you. You get life insurance, 1.3 million or whatever it was. Life insurance proceeds. That's going to help fix up the mansion. You get a clean slate, start fresh. You don't have to worry about losing custody of your kids and not getting alimony or child support, I should say. I don't know if they're long enough married to get for them to be able to get alimony, but her whole life went from basically to the point of falling apart in so many different ways to all of a sudden having everything that she wanted. And where have we heard that before? But she got busted, so it took it all away. And so my opinion on this case today here, they just nailed it. The prosecutor absolutely nailed it by calling this witness here. She was phenomenal in showing how much there was a horrendous large amount of motivation to get money, and Eric was worth way more dead than he was alive, because if he's alive he could say no. If he's dead he can't push back. So all right, hold on.
Confusing. Kouri Richins Realty had already purchased the Chelsea Barney home prior to all this, correct?
That's right.
And you went through all the efforts she was making to try.
Look at her. She's just harsh. She's very harsh to this person. Like, she's able to impeach her by being harsh, and you're not scoring any blows on this witness here. This witness is impeccable. There's no agenda here that I can see. She's just talking numbers. She's an accountant, and she's talking numbers.
Well, let me ask it this way. When it's first purchased, the idea was probably to flip it, right? Like she does all her business.
No,
She was going to keep it.
she was going to keep this one.
Okay, but she had hard money lenders the same way she did on her other flip properties originally.
Well, she's got those two different kinds. She's got the hard money where she's got a 6-month balloon and she doesn't have to pay anything in between. And then she's got the other ones where she has a due date, a maturity date, and she has to make those monthly payments. This was one of those. And so her original loan was due January 8th of 2022. And that's about the time that this transaction with Chelsea's going on.
Okay. And as you explained in your direct, she was trying to shop around for a long-term mortgage to get better terms of the mortgage, right?
Right. With David Ige and Excel, she was trying to refinance a few things.
Right. And while she's looking for a new mortgage package, Chelsea sends her this $45,000, right?
This is not where it's going over here.
Katie, can you please bring up 5-89D? This is in evidence, Your Honor.
All right.
Another 45 minutes or so
right.
left. I'm not going.
And that's where you kind of kept track of the balance on the HELOC, right?
This is correct.
And Katie, can you blow up the dates across the top line? Make them bigger. That's good. So this begins in March of 2019 when the first 50,000 or so was correct. All clear. You're certainly going to tell them, right? Eric's name's on the HELOC. You put that evidence in yourself, right? Yes,
That's correct. Yes.
As an owner of a HELOC, do you have access to your own statement balance at any time you want to look at it?
Yes.
Okay.
How do we know he knew about it?
See her liability. And remember, I also said there's that big category of loans. All those payday loans are not on the CPA's financial statements. Like for 2021, for example, there's nothing.
Well, and if she'd have reported the loan, she'd have paid even less taxes, right?
Absolutely.
So she way over-reported her taxes and paid too much taxes.
Whether or not she actually paid them, that's a different story. But the tax liability was significantly larger than it would have been had she accounted for everything correctly.
And you stated through Mr. Bloodworth that it's possible she did this just to look successful to people.
That is not what I said.
Okay.
And a note about the 2019 tax return, I don't know if it was ever filed.
Well, that's a good point.
I do know that she prepared it and she did submit it to the government as part of her PPP loan forgiveness.
Did you ever review the packet of information of what she actually did submit to her accountant?
Yes, I've looked at every page.
And do you have any evidence as you sit here today that she ever provided proof of that tax return to any of her hard money lenders?
I don't know which, other than giving, submitting it to the government and through UCCU Credit Union for that loan forgiveness. I don't know if she ever showed that to anybody else.
So
I
it's
think they're talking about some of that COVID loan forgiveness stuff, where during COVID, people would just get hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to supposedly keep their businesses afloat. But there's so much fraud in that thing. It was just rampant fraud all across America.
fair to say that if she never did, it's pretty hard to argue the whole reason she way overpaid her taxes was to look successful to people if she never shared it with anyone. Fair?
No, because you're talking about just that one tax return.
So you're bringing up that your client might have just inflated income just to try to get more loans? I mean, that's bizarre.
Greg White did not prepare that tax return. Greg White prepared other tax returns for her.
Do you know how Greg White is related to Eric Richins or to Kouri Wright? I'm sorry.
So she had like a dummy tax return to float by these investors. Is that what the fence is trying to bring up?
His business partner?
No, I don't.
Did you know they were family?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so now I want to talk about statement just to
And had being the business partners had them stop on the laptop, I should say. And I don't know what was the CNE.
Let's go ahead and
minute. I'm very close.
No problem.
You made a statement that a house is valued.
look at her smiling like that. It's just acting very strange. I don't know what she's doing here.
Certainly, someone's willing valuation.
Okay.
You made a statement that a house is valued at whatever someone's willing to pay it for it, right?
That's not just my definition. That's the IRS, and that's
Okay.
business valuation 101.
Certainly, if I had two houses and I decided I wanted to give you one for a great deal because I think you're great, and I said, you know what, Miss Carrington, I'm going to sell you my house for $5. It doesn't mean that my house is valued at $5. It means that's what the value you put on my house. Or
There's such a thing called fair market value probably as well that you got to consider. But this is really a bizarre question to ask on cross-examination.
that I put on my house, right?
That's the value that you put on your house, I suppose. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
And the county, every year we get a little letter from the county telling us what they think our house is valued at, and that's what they tax us at, right?
That is the assessed value. That
Right.
is not what they actually think it's worth, but that's the assessed value.
And it's kind of a rule of thumb that the county actually does us a break and usually values it way below what it actually is, what you could sell it for.
Yeah, they at least in Salt Lake County, which is the county where I'm most
This is just getting into minutia here that's not important.
familiar, they do it every 4 years, and they draw it from comps, comparable properties.
Right. And so you're certainly not suggesting to this jury that the Midway Mansion was only worth $2.9 million just because that was the purchase price, right?
I think every indicator is that it wasn't worth a whole lot more than that.
Do you know what it actually ended up selling for?
I do.
How much did it actually end up selling for?
It was about 3.4 million. Matt Strong sold the note. It's a complicated transaction, but Matt Strong foreclosed on it.
And wait, stop right there. He foreclosed on it after Kouri was arrested, correct?
It was in the works already. I think the actual notice of default was filed shortly after. But
After Kouri was arrested.
right, like 4 days after, but it had been coming for many months. I mean, we have to look at the totality of the circumstance. She had defaulted on this many months before, and there were indicators that this was coming one way or another.
If Kouri had been able to stay till the very bitter end when the sale was made, they would have made $1.5 million.
No, nowhere close.
What did you just say they sold it for?
He sold it.
She couldn't maintain it. She couldn't make the balloon payments. So how is that possible?
the note. So this,
Not the note. What did they sell the house?
but this is part of the transaction.
Okay.
He sold the note to the current owners. So what that meant is he sold the rights to collect on this debt from Kouri Richins. And at the time, he sold that for $3.7 million. And then it went into the trustee sale because it was foreclosed. And the Harns, the current owners, paid $3.4 million for that property.
So the current owners that live in it now bought that property for $3.4 million about 2 years after Kouri bought it for $2.9.
Let me do the math.
Yeah, 2 years later. So who cares if it sold for more? She wouldn't have been able to hold on to it that long, and she had all those buyers fall by the wayside once they read all the absolute disaster issues. Everything that about that house spelled disaster.
They bought it so she bought it in March of 22. I think it's a year and a half.
Better. 18 months later, they made
Somewhere like that.
about $500,000 in profit. Flipping.
No. Because they bought it from themselves.
Okay. What was the purchase price that it was ultimately sold for?
$3.4 million, but they bought it from themselves.
I understand. Do you know the condition of the property when they bought it for $3.4 million?
I do.
Okay. Had they rehabbed it?
No.
So they hadn't done anything to it and they sold it for 3.4.
And they also hadn't dealt with the Armored Corps of Engineers.
Mhm.
So had they been able to do all that, it would have realistically sold for more.
I don't think so.
Okay, let me understand your question. If it's completed, finished,
For a profit and all that, really, and dealing with the Army Corps.
and all the issues with the wetlands and having to grow the new plants and all that stuff, if that's all, I would think it's worth more.
Okay. Now, you're here today.
Yeah, but you probably have to spend $5 million, and you may still lose money. I think you'd lose money no matter what you throw into that house.
To give a snapshot of a financial condition at a certain moment in time, right?
No.
Okay, let me rephrase it. You're here to look backwards at Kouri Richins' financial situation, right?
Could you please restate that? And
We're
what
here-
time frame are you looking
Backwards, the past.
from
We're here-
today?
From today, backwards from today, you are here to evaluate in the past what Kouri
Yes.
Richins' financial
Okay,
situation
no
was.
projections
What's the point here? Why would you be talking about the future, her future financials?
for the future.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
But certainly, and you're here to do that, to come up with your conclusion that at the time that Eric died, she was financially, I believe your words were, in distress. That's your conclusion.
Yes.
More than just in distress.
And certainly you would agree with me that every single person who's in financial distress does not opt for a solution of murder to fix their distress.
Objection.
Is that fair?
This is like totally improper for an attorney to do this. She's not there to talk about the connection of Kouri Richins to the murder. She's just there to talk about the financials. So this is like a real shady move here by Nestor.
Your objection, Mr. Bloodworth?
Speculation.
Sustained.
Okay.
So-
If in fact Ms. Richins was in financial distress, that does not, you're not here to say she killed her husband. Are you?
You're asking the same kind of thing. How do you not get it?
That's for the jury to decide. I am not making any conclusion about that at all.
Because you don't have any knowledge about that at all.
Well, that's
Objection, Your Honor.
Asked, answered, sustained.
Do you have any knowledge personally about whether or not
Sorry.
on the night of March 3rd, Eric Richins voluntarily ingested?
Ms. Nestor,
What's that got to do with her going over the counting numbers?
Fentanyl?
asked and answered.
Wait, that question that I just asked?
When she said she doesn't know anything about that, she meant she doesn't know anything about it.
She's just going up in flames here. Nestor's not doing good, guys.
And nothing in all the 100 and some thousand pages that you reviewed. Did you ever see any statement by Kouri Richins written down to anyone, to any of our investors, to anybody, saying,
Our 147 employees.
I know how I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going to kill my husband and then I'll have plenty of money.
Objection, Your Honor.
Did you ever?
That is so bizarre to put that in there. This
Ever
is
seen-
like this is like really unprofessional, I would say. It just doesn't have a good look about it to try to beat up this accountant over stuff like that, try to smear those kind of questions. And she's doing it over and over and over again. What's this now, the fourth or fifth time?
Any of that?
Overruled. Ms. Carrington, you can answer the question.
There's an email between her and Mount Strong where she talks about the inconvenience of being married.
Okay, so does that answer the question I just asked you?
You've asked, I'm not trying to create anything, but you said, is there anything that indicated anything? And, I don't talk like that.
So apart from an email that she sent saying it was inconvenient being married, have you ever seen any suggestion
She's trying to help her client, but she's digging more holes. That's typical of this defense team.
in anything in writing that Kouri's financial plan was to collect on life insurance and pay all this money off? Have you ever seen that?
To collect the life insurance to pay everything off. No.
Thank you.
She thinks she ended on a strong note, but she went up in flames. Anyway,
Mr. Blood.
I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that now. Let's see. Yeah, I don't talk like that. That was a zinger. Yep, treating the jury like morons. Ridiculous questioning. Says have malt gaming. Anyway, let me just sum up again by saying it's been a great day for the prosecution. They have overwhelming evidence to show there was motive to acquire over $1 million to help keep her businesses afloat. We already know other motives to get on with a new life. She's trying to start out with a guy named Josh Grossman. So, yeah, Tiffany Nicole, you think Nestor is trying harder than 90% of public defenders. She's not going to be successful, but still. Yeah, I mean, she's trying to put up a fight, but she doesn't have much to work with. So I just don't know why you have to be sort of like have that kind of cop that attitude and try to get snarky with a witness like this one that you're not going to ruffle her feathers. You're not going to land any blows and try to impeach her. So, all right, with that, I hope to cover again tomorrow's testimony. And with that, I'm going to sign off. You guys have a great night, and maybe you guys can catch trial tomorrow as well. And we'll go from there. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.